Hey, it's Locke here. And you might be wondering, why am I wearing a Star Wars mask? Well, that's a good question. Because I'm about to share an opinion that probably most Nintendo fans would not agree with me. So I'm keeping my identity a secret for now, in order to prevent an angry mob from showing up at my house. Because if you were in my situation, you probably would be too. Because today, I'll be telling you all about why this little guy here is singly one of the best handhelds Nintendo has produced in the last decade. This is a Nintendo 2DS, as you probably already guessed. Now, there are some very noticeable differences with this model compared to the original 3DS or any other 3DS model. We don't talk about the new 2DS XL. The 2DS basically got rid of the 3DS's clamshell design and went something that looks more like a modern evolution of the original Game Boy, which I am all in for, because the grip on this is amazing. The circle pad feels nicely placed, and the buttons feel like they're nice and easy to reach. There's also a D-pad, start, press buttons, and it just feels like it fits very snugly into your hands. However, not all good can come from a bit of plastic that costs $80 compared to $250 or $300. First off, they got rid of the 3D slider, which makes sense considering its name is the 2DS, which was essentially just a stripped down version of a 3DS. But by far the most controversial change they made was they got rid of amiibo support. In order to play games that required amiibo functionality on the 2DS, you had to buy a separate accessory so that it would scan it immediately. I mean, was it really hard for them to make an amiibo pad in this machine? It looks like there could have been space, but I guess they didn't. At least they remember the headphone jack. And to test to see if this is actually the size of a handheld, I'll be using my patented Wiimote size test. If it's bigger than a Wiimote, it's probably not a handheld. So as you can see, it passes the Wiimote test. I can't say the same about the Switch, the NES Classic Mini, and of course, we can't forget the Wii. But if you really want to get invested in what the 2DS has to offer, we have to look at some of its games. Because if you're going to be spending $80 to play a few games, you gotta know what your library is. Otherwise, is it really worth picking up? This game blows. This is Super Mario Maker for Nintendo 3DS. And this game is a confusing release, especially. The first Super Mario Maker released on the Wii U during Mario's 30th anniversary. So seeing it appear on 3DS in 2016 was kind of weird. And when you especially consider that this version was wedged between Super Mario Maker and Super Mario Maker 2, it didn't feel like a necessity to get this version over the one on Wii U. It kind of felt like a release that wasn't justified by anything. But let's take a look at the game and maybe see if it isn't that bad. Oh my god, this is taking forever. Did I mention how long it takes for this game to finally boot up? And just like the original, there's a little level you can play at the beginning to, get your hands used to the controls, but let's look at possibly one of the worst things this port has to offer. Oh my god, what did they do to New Super Mario Bros. U? It was already bad enough. And for starters, it takes you a full at least 3 seconds to actually start playing the level you've made. Now, sure, New Super Mario Bros. U does not look that bad on the 3DS. But it just looks so bad when you compare it to New Super Mario Bros. 2, which, by the way, came pre-packaged with my system. And it's just embarrassing. And there's not like there's anything that's different from the base game on the Wii U. They literally just made a port to have a port. And if the quality of your styles of games, as they call it, is gonna be worse looking than New Super Mario Bros. 2, the Super Mario World, Super Mario Bros. 3, and Super Mario Bros. Styles are all fine on this port. It's just New Super Mario Bros. U is a style I do not ever want to touch again. So, in a nutshell, this game should not exist. However, we are going to get to a game that will justify the purchase of getting a 2DS for how good of a launch it was for the 3DS. This is Super Mario 3D Land, probably one of the best Mario games for the 3DS at the time. Now, you might be wondering, with a game that relied so much on the 3D slider on the 3DS, will it even be playable on the 2DS? Well, do I have good news for you? It is! So, what would I say? Is it better or worse on the 2DS? It's not really worse, if anything. It's just a bit harder to make what's the foreground and what's the background. The 3D slider added some depth to what you were playing so you could see where you were in the level. But because this is playable in 2D, it's not as bad. It just might be a little rougher around the edges than the standard 3DS. But that does not mean you shouldn't pick this up. It is a great 3DS game, and it works and runs perfectly fine on the 2DS. I might post a review of this at some point. I don't know if I'll ever do it, but this is certainly one of the best games on the 3DS, and it's worthy of its Nintendo Selects box. However, we haven't even gotten to the best part of the 2DS and the 3DS to an extent as a whole. There are a bunch of titles on the eShop, and I mean there are lots. There are loads you can buy. Oh, wait. Yeah, Nintendo shut down the eShop in March of 2023. And I mean, why would you do that? You had an expansive library of games on here that you'd still be able to make money off of. This first happened with the Wii eShop, and now with the 2DS and Wii U eShop. And it baffles me that a company would do that. But I guess they want to focus more attention on their savior, the Switch. But, I mean, that's Nintendo. They do things and we don't complain about them. So, if there's anything to learn from this video, don't meet your heroes. Instead, play on your 2DS, like a real Nintendo fan would.